Today in TNT News, we spotlight a major paradox in Colombia's education system, especially in assessment. In a country where more than 70 languages are spoken, the ICFES is only available in Spanish, creating a gap between culturally diverse students like indigenous students who are even assessed in English, a language they have not mastered and that is unrelated to them. What can the government and policies do to create an equal assessment including the cultural diversity? Garcia, an important linguist, argues that using the native languages when speaking in another provides understanding aside from breaking the language barriers. This could be implemented by including questions that allows the students to use the languages they know, having in consideration the proficiency, preference, and cultural diversity. On the other hand, we have the decolonial perspective, which means giving value to autochthonous languages and cultures. Pinilla and Walsh advocate for the contextualizing of the knowledge. Some of the questions, for example in Saber Pro, are based on the urban context, which are hard to understand for people from inhospitable places. The assessment should include community-based projects or narratives that allow the students to connect to the context and cultural realities. Finally, Tejano, a teacher from the Philippines, advocates for a different type of assessment, one that is not written and rigid. In his research, he uses project-based learning and its assessment to grade the students based on what they know using their native languages. But this approach was not only used to assess language itself. It was used to assess the knowledge the student had in science, maths, and other subjects. All of that using their native languages while importing their cultural identity and showing results in the learning outcomes. But this is just one of the tensions about assessment. Cesar, our correspondent in Texas, has another story. Go ahead, Cesar.
Yes, Stephanie, assessment has been definitely affected by monolingual perspective. However, experts are trying very hard to push back this problem by creating three trends in which we can highlight. First one, bilingualism and biliteracy from a critical perspective. Secondly, critical language pedagogies, and finally, translanguaging approach, which are the three trends we have. Now, we have Miriam from a direct report from Paipa, Boyacá, but she will be getting there in a few minutes with details. Now, let's hear from this report. We could get exclusive information from Garcia. The tendency of monoglossic and monolingual assessments are a tool to undermine the linguistic repertoire of students. She illustrates that teachers need to create a viable environment to build up translanguaging practices that lead to a coherent assessment. This is done by shaping or designing 5 actions. The first one, translanguaging affordances. The second one, translanguaging collaboration. Now, this is causing a lot of questions. This is done by having bilingual pairs and intentional seating, which provides students with a valid peer perspective, as well as encourages diversity. The third one is translanguaging production. The fourth one is translanguaging assessment. And the fifth one, is translanguaging reflection. Now, we also interviewed Thompson, and he indicates that community-based languages learning, CBLL, gets students using the language in real community contexts. Integrated performances assessments like IPAs allow students to demonstrate their communication skills through interpreting and interacting and presenting portfolios, which help students track their progress, reflect on their learning, and plan for the future development. In the same way, Ofelia Garcia suggests that translanguaging reflection could be used as a tool for students to not only reflect and question their social reality, but also to reflect on their bilateral capacity. Now, let's head back to Miriam, which is in Paipa, Boyacá. She's trying to present something. Miriam, are you there?
Oh, classic life moment. Hello. Greetings from Paipa and Miriam Camacho on TNT News. Continuing from the reflection shared by Cesar Romero, I would like to illustrate translanguaging approach, which is transforming the way we assess bilingual students. According to Garcia 2020, traditional assessment, both formative and summative, often fail to capture the full linguistic and cognitive skills of bilingual students. Why? Because they are usually grounded in a monoglossic and institutionally sanctioned language policies, restricting students to use just the official language of instruction. From translanguaging perspective, Garcia 2020 exhorts educators to reimagine assessment. That means designing tools that are not just adequate, but also more sensitive to how students actually use language in real life. Instead of confining the students to one language, this approach encourages them to draw on their entire semiotic repertoire to express understanding. In classrooms across Colombia and here in Paipa, this perspective offers a more human, realistic, and empowering way to understand what the students know and how they learn. Thank you for joining us tonight on TNT News. And now, to continue this conversation on assessment practices, we go live to our correspondent Daniela, reporting from Medellin with insights on attention.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for your complete report. Well, from Medellin, I want to tell you that standardized tests don't take into account the linguistic development process of bilingual students. Standardized tests don't consider how bilingual students learn language over the time. This is a problem because these tests don't show the full languages skill of students who are learning two or more languages. Many students test don't see the small steps in how bilingual students improve. This can create unfair results. To help with this problem, teachers can use another way of testing called formative assessment. This type of assessment gives students feedback while they are still learning. Teachers can then change their teaching to help students in a better way. For example, teachers can use writing journals, language portfolios, or weekly meetings to give students feedback that matches their language level. It's also important for schools to understand that bilingual students are still growing in both languages. Their test scores might not show how smart or capable they really are. Teachers and parents should support their progress with patience and care. In the classroom, create a safe space for bilingual students to use both languages can help them to feel confident.
Hi there, Daniela. Here in Bogota, we have experienced massive strikes of hundreds of people in favor of translanguaging and self-correction. These people behind me are showing their discomfort about getting low scores in their standardized test in English, despite of being able to answer and respond to the different questions in their mother tongue. They are not happy to know that standardized tests are not really measuring their real proficiency level. But the critical question here is, how can translanguaging and self-correction enrich assessment outcomes? Well, on the one hand, Garcia in 2017 claimed that translanguaging is a tool that permits students to leverage their full linguistic repertoire without being limited by a single language, fostering at the same time cognitive flexibility. Therefore, this perspective would permit students really answer in their mother tongue. On the other hand, Sato and Lowen in 2019 stated that learners' ability to self-correct during language production is a good opportunity to reflect their internal language development. It means that, for example, that in the moment of speaking and noticing that one has made a mistake, but providing the correction should be understood as their interlanguage progression rather than a mere mistake. Well, Stephanie, as we can see, translanguaging and self-correction are two tendencies or trends that must be considered to ensure flexibility and metacognitive reflection, aiming better results in standardized tests. Well, that was Carlos Arenas for TNT News. Thank you.